Ditch your fat fear. Hey guys, welcome back to At the Table. We are talking today about our third macronutrient, which is fat. And we have talked a lot about fat. You hear me mention it several times in our various episodes that we have had. And when we had Cassidy on the show, we went into some detail about fat and saturated fat as well. But I wanted to talk about why fat is actually a good thing for us to have, the different types of fats that we want to maybe avoid or limit our intake of, and also the fats that we want to get enough of, because fats do tend to get a bad rap, and we have a lot of people who are still afraid of fat. When we look at a label, a lot of people are still worried about the amount of grams of fat that is in an item. And we don't necessarily need to be scared of fat. Fat is a very important part of our nutrition. It should be included. And all of our macronutrients should be included in our diet. So if you are ever looking at a diet, thinking about trying a new diet, if it eliminates one or multiple of the macronutrients, which by now we've talked about the other two, which are protein and carbs, and then our third is fat, if you have a diet that eliminates any of those, it's not a healthy diet to consume because of the different roles that those three macronutrients play in our body and why they're so important. So we are going to talk all about our fats. We have some healthy recipes today that are going to be a little bit higher in fat, or they might be a healthier alternative that don't contain quite as much saturated fat or trans fats. So to dive into that, there are three different types of fats. One is trans fats, and that is going to be something that contains our hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils. So if you look on a label and you see the words hydrogenated, for instance, this is Crisco, our vegetable shortening, and it says fully hydrogenated palm oil, partially hydrogenated palm and soybean oils. And there's some other ingredients listed as well. But trans fats are something that is artificially made. There are natural trans fats in some of our foods, but the majority of the trans fats we consume and the ones that are dangerous are going to be the artificial varieties. And those are used to make things thicker. So if you look in here, you can see our shortening, which is very, very thick. And I mean, this looks the same here as what it's going to do inside of your body. We always use the example of your drain pipes, and you wouldn't pour this down the drain because it's going to eventually clog your drain. You're going to have some plumbing problems, right? Same thing happens inside of our body. If we're filling our body with things, trans fats, saturated fats, that are going to be solid at room temperature, then it can cause harm to our body, especially down the road. So trans fats are something that we want to avoid because they are naturally made to be nice and thick. And of course, that's going to do the same thing internally as well. So the second type of fat is saturated fat. And saturated fat is commonly in more of our fatty cuts of meat, dairy products. Trans fats are found in a lot of our fried products, our really processed items. So processed foods tend to have more trans fats, and our natural animal fat foods tend to have more saturated fats. So that can kind of help you differentiate the two. Our saturated fats are what also can begin to clog our pipes or our arteries as well. And trans fats and saturated fats do increase our LDL, what we call our lousy cholesterol, and they lower our HDL, which we call our happy cholesterol. So those things can, of course, affect your heart down the road, and that is why we want to be mindful of the amount of saturated fats and trans fats we are having in our diet. The American Heart Association recommends we only have 5 to 6% of our fats come from saturated fats. So keep that in mind when you are looking at items. Cut the fat off of certain meats that you have. Choose leaner cuts such as chicken or white meat chicken. So dark meat chicken is actually pretty high in saturated fat. Your white meat poultry, your lean ground beef or lean beef in general, so very lean beef, can be lower in saturated fat. Your lean pork can also be lower in saturated fat. So the goal here is the leanness. So that is what you want to look for in terms of when you are buying animal products. Dairy products, also the low fat option is best. What we do want is our unsaturated fats. So these are going to be things that are liquid at room temperature. So you can see here, this is my olive oil. It's nice and liquidy. If you pour this down your pipes, still might have to call a plumber down the road because of the way pipes are set up, but internally in our bodies, this does not do as much harm to our heart as our other fats. So we'll dive a little bit more into those fats we want to get in our diet, why we want to get them in our diet, and all of that when we come back in just 1 second.
Introducing the Star Communications app. All the tools you need in one convenient location. You can access Watch TV everywhere. Check local channel lineup. Check your Star email. View and pay your Star bill. Report troubles. Use your Star Security app. Check your home voicemail. Sign up for CrowdFiber. Check your Wi-Fi speed. The list keeps going and going. Download for free from the App Store or Google Play.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are talking all about the different types of fats. So I just gave you a lot of information about fats and why maybe they're not so good for us. But the rest of this show, I want to talk about why fats are good. So there are lots of different unsaturated fat varieties out there that are really healthy for us. And fat does play an essential role in our body. So it helps to store energy in our body. So creates energy reserves to use up later. It also helps with any of our fat-soluble vitamins, being able to absorb those into our body, which can be essential as well. For women, if we don't have enough fat in our diet, it can begin to affect our hormones, especially our reproductive hormones. So it is important that we have a healthy level of fats in our diet. It's not something that we need to cut out. It's not something that we should totally eliminate and avoid. Fat is healthy, fat is good, especially the right kinds of fats. And the biggest one being our unsaturated fats, which are commonly found in our plant-based foods, avocados, olive oil, nuts. Those are very, very healthy, have a good amount of unsaturated fats. Also, our leaner fish are good options as well. They're a little bit higher in unsaturated fats. Those omegas we talk about all the time that are so good for us. So we want to make sure we're getting lots of those in our diet because they are, again, fat is good. We want to have fat. So we're going to jump into our recipe. I'll talk a little bit about fat as we're making our stuff today. But what we are making is oven fried Parmesan chicken today. And then we're also going to be making a homemade hummus recipe. I have made hummus for you guys before. We made a white bean hummus. This time we're gonna put a little bit of a spin on it and make a roasted red pepper hummus to just have here and there. So the first thing that we need to do is I went ahead and put 2 eggs in our little container here and whisk those up to get that out of the way. Next thing we're gonna do is be making our breading. So this is an oven fried Parmesan chicken recipe, and the point of that is that we're not deep frying it. Remember, fried foods tend to have higher amounts of those trans fats. We also get into our saturated fat content going up with our fried foods. So by doing it in the oven, we're kind of eliminating as much oil being added to this, and we are choosing healthier oils that we're gonna be using a little bit on top of our chicken as well. So what we need, we're gonna use some breadcrumbs right here, and we're gonna use 3/4 of a cup of that. Now, if you have whole grain breadcrumbs, that would be ideal. I cannot find them in our store, and I honestly don't use breadcrumbs a whole lot, so I don't use it quite enough for me to make my own. It is very easy to make your own. I have done it, you know, at the last minute when I really needed some breadcrumbs and didn't have any. You can really just take a piece of whole grain toast, put it in the toaster, and blend it up, and it becomes breadcrumbs. So if you want to make your own, please go for it. I bought the, it's called Simply Better, but it's only got 3 ingredients. So to me, this is a good choice, but again, it's not the best choice. It is not whole grain, so there are other options out there. And then we have a tablespoon of flour. I'm doing this all in our bag here. Now you could do this in a bowl if you don't want to dirty up a plastic bag or have food waste, or not food waste, have waste. But to me, it's just easier. I don't make oven fried chicken a whole lot anyways. So it's just easier to coat your chicken when you didn't do it in a bag, you could shake it all up. All right, so then we have a little bit of paprika. Get this out of the way. And we are just doing a teaspoon of paprika. If you want this to be spicy, you could add a little bit of cayenne pepper. That would be really good. We're just gonna skip that today because we've got the paprika in there and I think that'll be good. And then we are using Parmesan. Now, ideally, you would look for Parmesan cheese that is, of course, reduced fat because of the saturated fat content in that. But if you can't find it, you're not gonna end up using a ton in terms of the chicken, the serving size that you're gonna be eating, so it will be okay. We're only using 4 tablespoons in this entire recipe, so not a whole lot. And you could chop this into smaller chunks of Parmesan if you want to. I'm just gonna throw it right in. Depends on the variety of Parmesan that you're using, but these are grated into longer strips. We're not gonna add any salt or pepper to this, but you could if you choose. Parmesan tends to have a good amount of sodium as well. So we're gonna do this, mix it all up, and I'm gonna go ahead and start getting my chicken. I'm gonna do about half of it, and we'll see you guys back to finish the other half.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Hey guys, so I've got half of our chicken done. I was gonna finish the rest of it here with you. I did go ahead and just trim out the tendon. I got chicken tenderloins because they were on sale. They were the exact same price as my chicken breast, and I said, well, they've already cut it for me. I'm not gonna bother with the chicken breast. So I went ahead and just got the chicken tenderloins instead. But I don't tend to like the little tendon part. It can be kind of chewy when you bake it or cook it in general. The rest, there is a tendon that goes all the way through. The one inside is a little bit more thin, and it tends to kind of, when it doesn't really cook out, but it cooks down, so it's not quite as tough and stuff as the actual tendon that sticks out. So I just take scissors and trim that off really simply. And then we're putting this in our egg wash, and get rid of this. It's really nice if you have some of these little tongs because you can do all of this without really having to get your fingers all gross and yucky. I did just add a little bit of salt and pepper to our mixture. Not much. You can adjust this to taste. You can also just leave off that salt and pepper and add it at the end. A lot of times if we are cooking something, it's better to to season right before, well, with salt and pepper, it's better to season right before you are eating it. That way you don't have to use quite as much. With salt, it tends to kind of cook into whatever you're eating, so you don't taste it as much if you season before you cook it. So little tip for you there. And I've just arranged this on a baking pan. I did go ahead and spray my pan with a little bit of cooking spray to avoid any of our chicken sticking here. I can grab this guy. And I'm trying to place them without having them touch. This will help it to cook a little bit more quickly, and it'll be a little bit more crispy versus if you have them all touching, they tend to get a little bit more soggy. We don't want soggy chicken. So I'm doing my best to arrange them without them touching. That way the heat can go around the entire chicken and cook it all down. You're just gonna throw away that bag. This has touched raw chicken and raw egg, so we don't wanna use it again. And we're gonna go toss this into the oven. My oven's at 425, and we're gonna cook this for about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, so we will check on that in just a little bit. The next thing that we are gonna be making is hummus. And this is a recipe from one of the trainings that we have with our FCS agents in Extension as a whole, which was a cooking local foods training that we were able to do. And those trainings are done by local chefs. So we go to Raleigh and we're trained there, and we have chefs come and teach us not all of the things, because they know a lot, but teach us a lot of their tips and tricks to help us when we are working with the public. So this is a recipe, I'll tell you exactly who it was from. It's from Chef Babcock at Whisk in Cary. And this is a 6-way hummus recipe. So the way to adjust that, you can make a black bean hummus, you can make a garlic hummus, you can make a roasted red pepper hummus. We're gonna be adding roasted red peppers to this to help give it a little bit of a different flavor. And you can buy roasted red peppers in the store already canned, and kind of reduces some of that time for you. So what I went ahead and did first is I actually cooked my chickpeas. I added a teaspoon of baking soda, and then I just cooked them down. And when you cook them, you want to be able to smash them. So how you know they're done is if you're able to smash it a little bit, they get softer, and that way it will blend up a little bit better when you are putting them in your blender. So what we are actually going to start with is our tahini sauce. Tahini is just a sesame seed, it's technically a paste, but you mix sesame seeds and olive oil together. If you can't find tahini, I could not find it in our grocery stores for the longest time. They just started carrying it probably in the last year and a half that I have seen. But it's really easy to make. You just blend up sesame seeds and olive oil. So I fortunately was able to find some to reduce me having to do this myself. And I'll open that up in just a minute. So what we're gonna do is combine our lemon juice. So we need about 1.5 lemons, about 1/3 of a cup. And I'm just gonna juice these guys, and I'll start adding some of the rest of our ingredients. We'll see you guys back in just a second to finish up our hummus.
After completing my contract, I still have to buy out of it? Come on. Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping homes secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody try to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Okay, our chicken is done. We have taken that out of the oven. I did check it with my thermometer and it is above 165. It's actually closer to 170. One of them registered 180. What you do is you check the bigger pieces of chicken that you have, and also in the thickest part of the chicken is where you want to insert your thermometer probe and make sure that it is registering at least 165 for chicken. So that is completely done. It will be delicious. We'll let it cool. We're gonna finish up our hummus. We've had a little bit of a switch off. We are not doing roasted red pepper hummus anymore. We're just gonna do plain hummus, regular hummus. And the good thing about this is that you can take this, what we're making today, and adjust it and make whatever flavor you'd like. And I'll talk about that in just a little bit. So what I have done is that I went ahead and did my lemon juice and garlic. I did 2 cloves of garlic. You can do 2 to 4 cloves depending on how much you want. To do garlic, you guys have seen me use fresh garlic before. I just take the hard part of your hand and smash it. You'll hear a little crunch. Then I kind of push it back and forth and peel the outside layer off. We'll throw this in there because why not? So that's exactly how you peel your garlic and add fresh garlic to your hummus. So let me pull this over here. So what we have next, you want to add the garlic, the salt, and the lemon juice. Let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then we are going to add in our tahini. Now that tahini that I mentioned is just sesame seeds. So you do need a whole cup of this, but this is going to be where your unsaturated fats come in. Our tahini, our hummus in general, tends to have a higher amount of fat, but it is all unsaturated fat. So when you're choosing whether you should add to a sandwich hummus or mayonnaise, hummus would be a better option because it's an unsaturated fat, unless you're buying something like the olive oil-based mayonnaise. You always want to check the label and see what is in that. So that is 1 cup. When you are getting your tahini, I will say this is a little bit pricey, so you could again make your own with just sesame seeds and olive oil, but you want to make sure that you mix it really well with a little spoon or a spatula so that the oil will blend in with the ground sesame paste. It will naturally separate, so you just want to take a spoon or something and mix it all together before pouring it in. So we've done that. Next we have actually we're gonna do this last. Do the tahini and we'll do our spices. So we've got cumin, some salt, and I'll add a little bit of paprika to it. So we're just doing half a teaspoon of cumin. And then we're also gonna do 1.5 teaspoons of salt. If you don't add salt, it is gonna be not great. You need salt for a little flavor in this one. But again, this is supposed to be kind of more of a condiment, or you could eat it with chips or vegetables or something like that as well, crackers, vegetables. But you don't tend to eat a ton of this. This isn't like your main meal, so sodium in here is not a huge problem, unless you are being smart about how much sodium you're consuming. Okay, we're gonna blend this up, and then we'll add a little bit of water. It's gonna be loud for just a second. All right, so you just wanna get it to the point where it's mixed up. Then we are going to add a little bit of cold water. Actually, you can hopefully see a little bit of how thick that is. I'm gonna add just a little bit of water to loosen it up. This is cold water, so you want about 1/3 to 2/3 cup of cold water. And I'm gonna blend it again until it's more smooth. I did that entire 2/3 cup of cold water. You just want to eyeball it until it's nice and smooth. And we can see that it is now very nice, very smooth. We'll add in our chickpeas. So you add in those warm chickpeas that we had. Of course, they've been softened. This will also help if you have any, if you ever are making beans and you have problems with a little bit of indigestion or gas, bloating when you consume beans, you can heat them up and it will help to reduce that a little bit. And we're just gonna blend it about 2 minutes. And that's just until it's smoothed all through. So this is a pretty intense blender. It does work really fast. It could take you up to 2 minutes of blending all of that, but it is very smooth, just like a hummus paste that we would like. You can throw that into a bowl and add in a little bit of olive oil on top, some paprika on top, and it'll look really pretty. To make some varieties, you could add in roasted red peppers. You could change the chickpeas to black beans, or you could do a whole head of roasted garlic, throw that in there, and it would be really good. So there's a few varieties. This is the base, and then you can add whatever you like to up the flavor. So this is a healthy choice, and make sure you're consuming those fats. They're very important for our diet. I hope that you learned a little bit about our macronutrients. We will see you guys back next time.